Hi, Dogwood. We wanted to share a few takeaways from our visit to Bodine and just some good ideas that some of us might want to try out in our classroom. So we're going to start out with some big takeaways, and one of our big takeaways was that we saw teachers drilling every day in order to build fluency. Now, they drilled it on different topics that some of the teachers are going to talk about, and they drilled in different ways.
I was in a second grade classroom, and they used cards to review and drill the phonics skills every day, and they had to identify words where those phonics skills were in the word, so the sequence of the word, and then it slowly progressed to sentences and words and things like that. But you can also use technology in your classroom instead of the handheld cards, and I think the kids will love that. You can flip through, but they build on each other with each lesson. So you're introducing new skills along with reviewing old skills.
I was in a fifth grade classroom where they did the fluency sounds again, just different sounds. They used PowerPoints and to flip through the sounds. He used posters that were on his walls, different flip charts, and also they recognized the sound. Each vowel sound, it makes a different sound when it's in a different position in the word, so they identified the sound and what position it was in to make that sound, and they built through the sounds, the words, sentences, and the paragraphs all in one lesson.
So another big takeaway was that most of their reading-focused teaching involved the use of spelling conventions. So teachers would point out and practice with different vowel teams. They would also have students do a lot of phonetic spelling and breaking apart of different letter combinations. Teachers would ask questions to guide students through analyzing the sounds on their own. And they had a lot of very strategic spelling lessons. They also tried to use repetitive questions over and over again as a way to kind of cue the student's memory. So they might say, okay, repeat the word. What are the sounds that you're hearing? Talk me through those sounds. And all of that, like analyzing of spelling, decoding of words, is their whole purpose of that is, of course, to read. Anything else we want to talk about with spelling? Okay. And the next thing that we kept hearing a lot about, and we saw a few examples of that, were the use of multisensory. So as they're teaching phonics and reading, they tried to pull in some different ways to do multisensory things. So one of these was using a strategy that we've seen before with Wilson.
And it was in my second grade classroom, they were tapping out the sounds of the word so that they can identify how many sounds they can hear, and that will build them up to the syllables.
And so that's using just your fingertips to tap through those different sounds.
On the desk.
On the
they
desk.
Would tap it out, and they had to identify how many sounds they heard for each word. And some of the students put their hand on their throat so that they can actually feel the sounds as they were reviewing, so they know that different vowels make different sounds and different patterns make different sounds, so they can feel it. And if they felt something different, then that was a cue to try it again.
Some other things that they shared with us, but we didn't get to actually observe, were the referencing to the different mouth positions in order to make sounds. And they had also mentioned doing like air writing with your finger or sky writing that some of our special ed teachers are doing currently. And I've seen some other regular ed teachers doing this as well while they're teaching handwriting. But we're going to hopefully bring back some other information and other ways that we can bring a multisensory to all classrooms. So these are just some good ideas that you might want to consider trying in your classroom that we saw from Bodine. One of the good ideas is the BIRDS program. And this is actually a program that Bodine created, and they kind of took different parts from different programs. Basically, what the BIRDS program is that it is an individual vocabulary study, and each kid has like a box of index cards that has their star words listed on it, and then they are separated into my current words that I'm working on, words that I still need to work on, and words that I have that I've mastered. And for each of these words, the students are going to target 8 to 10 words per week. And on those words, they are going to drill on them every single night with their parents. And the parents are going to sign off on a small calendar saying that they did them. On the back of each of those words, the teacher has written a script for the parent to have conversations about the word structure as they practice at home. And the parents are to drill the kids, and then once a week, every kid meets one-on-one with a teacher to go over their words and have those conversations. And they do offer parent training videos to kind of show them the different methods of doing the BIRDS program. Did y'all want to add anything about BIRDS? Did y'all get to see
I think
that?
the parent training is very important because a lot of parents ask, what can I do at home? What can I do to help? Any ideas? And it also brings consistency to the language from school to home so that the student won't get confused. It's like working as a team. So if the parents are more informed of what they can do to support the child at school, then it'll be beneficial to the child.
I love that. And also, we had talked a little bit about having that constant progress monitoring that everyone's taking part in, the teacher, the student, and the parent. Another good idea is to just pay some attention to spelling conventions. I know that spelling has been a struggle or an area that we've been talking about a lot this year in Germantown, but spelling just to memorize a list of words is not going to be beneficial to reading. However, if we are teaching students to analyze spelling errors and to use spelling as a way to be a stronger reader and find those phonemic patterns in there, then I do think that spelling can be a huge benefit for our readers. Do you want to add anything about spelling?
One thing they did when a student didn't know a word or when they were trying to teach them the word was they had them box any prefixes and suffixes, underline and label vowel sounds, label consonants between vowels, divide the word into syllables, and then read each syllable and blend the word to help them be able to sound the word out on their own.
And I think it's very important in the spelling that you identify spelling patterns. That way you can help support the student with what they're struggling with. So if it's long A makes various sounds. So maybe that student needs a refresher, no matter what grade, on those specific phonemic patterns.
Oh, and that just actually reminded me of what they were talking about when they actually grade a spelling test. They don't just have the question right or wrong. If they are focused on a certain vowel combination, if they get that vowel combination correct, they get the majority of the points. If they get the beginning and ending correct, they get some points. So that might be a way to actually make spelling conventions or assessments more targeted to a skill.
A skill rather than the entire word.
Yeah. We also loved the idea, like we had said earlier, about the training videos, and we think that that would be very beneficial for our parents here. We know that most of our parents are very involved and would love to support us and reinforce what we're doing at school to better help their kid.
One thing that I also noticed with the spelling and just general classroom procedures is that there are no erasing. So if a student does mess up or make a mistake, they have to put a box around it, and then they're able to correct that word or that mistake, because the teacher uses that information to identify, okay, where did they go wrong? So if they see a pattern in their boxes, then they need to go back and have a reteach or dive more into the problem. But I love the fact that there's no erasing. So that way the teacher is aware of their thinking during the writing process.
Well, and we also even talked about the no erasing allowed students to see that errors are okay. They are something that we are going to use to learn from. And we even saw some of the teachers actually making errors and then modeling how they would catch themselves, what the procedure to find the error would be, and how to move on from that. So it kind of also build confidence as a learner. One of the huge takeaways from Bodine is to use every single possible cue for allowing students to pull things from their memory. And one thing that we saw that we really liked was a mnemonic, which was COPS, COPS.
And that was encouraged for the children to write always on the side of their paper, whether it's a test paper, a class paper, a homework paper, and it stood for capital, order, punctuation, and spelling. It was a way for them to check their writing. Are all the capitals that are needed there? Are the words in the correct order to make sense? Do we have the right punctuation? And are our words spelled correctly? And after they check that, they get to cross out each letter if it's done, and then a teacher will come by and check to make sure that they have done it correctly. And even if they've crossed it all out and still have a mistake, the teacher uses guided questions to help them find their mistake.
And the final thing that we really liked and want to consider somehow for Dogwood is the use of scope and sequence with phonics and with reading skills. Just to have a school-wide plan for these are the skills that are going to be introduced in kindergarten, in first, in second, and then even building up through fifth grade to see what can we revisit and then what has already been taught. So we have a common language, we have an understanding or kind of a roadmap on where are we going with reading and what are the targeted must-haves for that grade level to make sure that we're hitting everything and that when we want to revisit it, we know, like, are we having to go far back to revisit it or do we want it to be just woven through the curriculum, the entire, I guess, their entire Dogwood experience.
I do also like the scope and sequence because as a first grade teacher, it helps me better understand where I'm leading them to fourth and fifth grade. And as a fourth and fifth grade teacher, it would help me better understand, okay, where do I need to go back? As you stated, do I need to go back to second grade? Do I need to go back to third grade and pull these things? And it also helps us as a school community to work better together.
We wanted to include some of the materials that we learned about when we were at Bodine on here, just in case. We know some people are interested in researching other materials. We've actually used some of these materials, and we're looking at pulling in even more materials. So the first one was Read Naturally, and there's a version of it online called Read Live. For RTI, the Tier 2 and Tier 3 groups that are working on comprehension, we're kind of piloting some of these small passages. They're short reading passages, but they can be targeting different grade levels. They're very high interest and unique articles. So this is something that I really like having. Spire was another one that we heard of, and this included phonemes and leveled readers. I loved the idea that this actually had like large grade level readers that pulled in those phonemic skills. I really wanted some of those. The Wilson magnet boards, these are actually available in the few Wilson kits that we have. Ms. Bonanno has a class set. RTI has maybe 5 to 10 boards. I know Ms. Prather also has some of her own boards. The Mega Words was the higher level middle school word study. And then the Birds program was something that they created. So we could easily mimic that and create more of a Dolphins, where we could find some grade level vocabulary for kids to study, which I think would be amazing. But we can run that by the team. Any other materials that you all saw that really were?
I loved a lot of their charts. They had the phonemic charts up, so that allowed a visual for the students to go back and refer to if they did get stuck on a word. That's so important, especially in the lower grades, because they may not always remember when they come to an unknown word, but that visual was amazing.